I'm here to speak about digitalization and basically the learnings and experiences of DNV GL when it comes to digitalization. Really happy to see so many people in the room. I hope it's not only for lunch at least. So yeah, let's get started. I think it's fair to start with a question at first. What are we talking about when we talk about digitalization? We hear it everywhere, but what do we actually mean? Well, I think it's fair to say that it's basically what it says here on the screen. It's about integration of digital technologies into everyday life by digitalization of everything that can be digitalized. So in this context, it doesn't mean that we have to invest a lot to become digital. It means that we have to find out how we can use what we have in order to make that information digital and use that information to take smarter decisions. And next then, why are we talking about digitalization at this point and now? And why is everyone talking about it this point and now? Well, it's a lot of factors coming together. In a shipping context, we see that we have a lot of development when it comes to sensors and the Internet of Things. The equipment we put on the ships becomes more and more digital smart. They collect more and more information. That is one driver. To add on that, we also have handheld devices that we can use to communicate, but not only to communicate. If we talk about the digitalization of things or Internet of Things and sensor development, the smartphone that everyone keeps in your pocket contains around 14 different sensors constantly monitoring and collecting information. Of course, we have the connectivity aspect. More and more ships become more and more connected. So data is accessible in a way that it wasn't before. And then, of course, we have the big data and the analysis aspect. Everyone wants to be Google or Amazon and use big data to take really, really smart decisions. So we transfer that to a shipping context. And of course, we have cloud and platform development and so on. So it's a lot of factors coming together, making digitalization the hottest topic in shipping today, maybe. But, and I think all of you can agree, when we talk about handling large amount of data, the biggest question is trust. How can we trust this information? We want to take decisions based on the information we have, based on the information we get. But how can we trust it, and how do we know we can trust it to take those decisions? That is a big question, and a big question in a lot of the projects that we work on when it comes to this topic. We can take this example as an illustration. We were looking at a quite highly advanced vessel, a drill ship. There were thousands of sensors collecting information all the time. We had 2 ships. We have data sets for over a year. Somewhere around 36 million data points that could be analyzed and could be used for decision making. However, when we look into this and we see what can we use this for, we see a lot of flaws in this information. We see that none of it is basically on a common standard, making analysis and that analytics part that we want to achieve extremely difficult. We see that there are time gaps in the data that is inexplicable. We see that we have values that are completely out of the chart, that we cannot explain, that has not been filtered out. So basically, with a lot of data comes a lot of problems. And what we need to address is basically to look at when we try to analyze data, we need to account for a number of factors, looking at do we trust this data or do we not trust it? And we all basically all need to address all these various parameters when we look at this data and how we can manage it. I will, of course, not in this session here go into each and every detail of it, but when we look at how can we use data in a smarter way, all of these areas needs to be addressed in order to understand what kind of decisions can we take based on the information we have at hand. So the question then, are data or are vessels today data smart? Well, new vessels are to a quite high degree very data smart, meaning that we collect a lot of information on board a ship. As all you equipment manufacturers out here today know, your equipment is collecting a lot of information in most often legacy systems. The challenge is for a ship owner is that you might have quite new, quite advanced vessel in your fleet, but on the other hand, you have also old and not as sophisticated and data smart vessels in your fleet. You need to be able to handle both of these aspects. When the design was made, it was not understood how are we going to use the data we collect. Collecting it is one thing, transferring it and taking decisions on it is another thing. We now collect a lot of data. We don't have the full path for how to use it. In addition, we don't have common standards, as we talked about. There is no standard for how do we collect data in a maritime context and making that data available in a standardized way. There are now 2 standards, ISO standards, that is under development to trying to cater for this need at least. I think one good example of this is a project that we did some years ago, trying to look into what has happened, the failure effects of a motor breaking down, causing blackout on a ship. Basically, all the information that was needed to do the analysis was there. It was collected in the engine automation system. But there was no way for the operator to access that information in a simple and feasible manner. Those kind of aspects need to change. There need to be standards catering for the needs, making data accessible for the industry. So basically then, how do you get started? Where do you start as a ship owner today, based on the experience that DNV GL have? If you hear that, well, we need to be digitalized, we need to understand how we can manage data efficiently, but we basically do not know where we are. Well, the first step is, of course, to understand what kind of information do I have on board my ships? Mapping of your assets. What kind of information is collected by sensors? What kind of information is manually inputted in various systems? Get that understanding straight so we know, okay, this is the data we have currently at hand to work with. The next step is then, of course, well, then we have to understand how do we make use of this information? How can we use this to get smarter, to be more advanced in the way we work? And finally, decide on what are potential bottlenecks that we need to overcome in order to use this data in a smart fashion. Basically, from our point of view, a shipping company today, well, they don't necessarily need to say that we need to go and be fully digitalized and use big data analysis, but to have a grasp and understanding of what shall we do in this area when it comes to digital solutions and digitalization, is paramount for moving forwards. And I think in both the introduction presentations that were held today, we're both mentioning digitalization as one of the key factors for shipping in the years to come. So for a shipping company to start to address and look at these questions today is the first step that, that we recommend from our point of view. Well, we know that there are a lot of challenges with the data we have. We know that much can be improved, but what can we do here and now? These are some of the examples of work that we have done over the recent years, trying to benefit from bigger data sets and use systematic data in a more analytical way. Starting with new building optimization, to use your operational data to simulate the vessels, to simulate how they will work in an operational context, how they will work in various weather conditions. By that, looking at, can we optimize the design of the ship? Is that something we can move forwards with? Also, dimensioning of your spare parts inventory. How much spare parts do we need? Where are the real bottlenecks on our ship? What can we do in order to prevent these bottlenecks from being the bottlenecks that they are, in order to reduce inventory costs, spare part costs, as well as to optimize reliability and minimize off-hire for the vessels. That is one very clear way where operational data can be used to further improve the operation and the new builds. Of course, looking at operational support, move surveillance of equipment, trying to limit unnecessary administration from the ships to shore office or to other resources, so that the guys on board the vessels can really work with what they are intended to do, basically operate the ship. Very closely connected to that is, of course, the area of energy efficiency. That has been a hot topic for quite many years. A number of operators have done a lot. We have seen new systems collecting information in order to make the vessels more energy efficient. There we have a number of different solutions out in the market, and where we have advanced in shipping quite much. I think also was mentioned during the initial presentation, using information and data to be more smart when it comes to maintenance management. Basically moving over to condition-based strategies, using data to foresee the reliability and operation of the equipment is another area where a lot of gains can be made in shipping. We see today that many of the major operators are investing quite heavily into digital solutions and digitalization, and have very high hopes for how this can shift the industry and how they can be more profitable of it, both in terms of fuel economy and in terms of improved operational efficiency. So a lot of people are putting a lot of high hopes into this area. And, well, if it is the next step or not, but of course, in the long run, looking at autonomous ships is the future in some areas. On the right-hand side, we have a DNV GL research project, the Revolt, looking at the concept for an autonomous ship. On the left-hand side, we have the Yara Birkeland, which is intended to be in operation at the end of 2018, fully autonomous. And then, of course, the demands and requirements put on sensors, on data traffic, all the areas that we talked about, will be quite significant. fully autonomous ships may not be the ideal solution for all shipping segments. There will be hybrids, but moving in this direction is definitely a way forward for the shipping industry. Yeah, that was basically what I had to say for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mikael. It's not so easy to get questions from the audience, but I know that they are mostly welcome to your tent and your.
Yeah, our stand is at B6. We will have some of the researchers working with various of these projects there, so you can speak to them about the nitty-gritty stuff. And we will be there both today and tomorrow.
So B6, you can meet DNV GL. I just have a short question, and it might be a big question, I don't know, but what do you think, what is the biggest challenge within the digitalization when you talk about the shipping industry for the future?
Well, I think we talked about a lot of the various sort of challenges we have with the data as such, but I think one of the biggest challenges for shipping is why should the people, the talent working on digital solutions, why should they work in shipping? Why not work at Google or something more fancy? I think that is one of the key aspects that shipping need to address. And that I think, and I know that is already a big crunch for many companies today to find the guys who are doing this. You come straight out of college and then you're hijacked to Silicon Valley. Why stay and work at a Swedish or a Greek or a Norwegian shipping company?
Thank you so much for your speech. I think we give Mikael Johansson an applause. Thank you.